Today, I'd like to introduce you to our guest for today's Coffee Talk, OGA. We have Mel Holt joining us. Mel has over 40 years experience in managing and underwriting PNC business. He holds a CPCU, a CIC with 14 years experience teaching CPCU courses. He also served on the board of directors of the Independent Insurance Agents of Oklahoma. He is a guru when it comes to underwriting commercial insurance through independent insurance agents. We also have joining us today, many of you know him, Patrick Moran. Patrick has over 35 years experience in marketing and underwriting with standard markets and MGAs. A Tulsa, Oklahoma native, Patrick is a grad of the University of Arkansas and holds a CIC designation and served on the board of Independent Insurance Agents of Oklahoma, as well as the president of the Oklahoma Surplus Lines Association. He is also a guru when it comes to developing commercial insurance through independent insurance agent relationship developments. I want to thank you guys for joining us today for this episode of Coffee Talk. Would you like to share a little bit about OGA with us?
Thank you, LaDonna. We will. Let me start by first thanking you for the opportunity to introduce OGA to your members over in Arkansas. Just a little bit about myself. I actually grew up in Fort Smith, Arkansas, so I consider myself an Arkansas native as much as an Oklahoma native. But what I thought I'd do is first give you a quick history of the OGA office, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mel to talk a little bit about appetite and markets that we have at OGA. And first, OGA, it was started in 1951 in Oklahoma City, and that's where our main office is located. Since that time, we've expanded to other states, including Texas, New Mexico, Kansas, and then the latest, of course, Arkansas. In 2008, Jenny Daughter, our current president and CEO, took over the reins there in our office. And in this last 12 years, she's managed to double our size. And she is very progressive and very growth oriented. So as you can see, we keep expanding into neighboring states, and we've added capabilities in terms of markets and people. And you're going to hear from Mel in a minute, and he's one of the examples. And then we've also added a underwriting associate for Mel over in Arkansas, Janie Williams, which some of you may know from the past. When you're dealing with OGA, you'll be dealing with people over in Arkansas. And I would add that OGA is one of the last remaining privately owned MGAs in Oklahoma and Arkansas. It's the last one in Oklahoma. There's a couple left in Arkansas, but through all the mergers and acquisitions by big companies, we think that's pretty special. So having said that, one of the things that we'll be talking about is after this is over, if you want to do business with OGA, it's a very simple process. You'll shoot me an email and you'll fill out a one-page app. I'll hold it up here. You can't really see it on there, but it's a one-pager. It asks for the minimal information. The key thing is we ask for a copy of your E&O deck sheet, your W-9, your agency license, and then your agency staff list. And that's really what we want from you, just to make sure that we can contact everybody in the agency. So having said all that, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mel and let him talk a little bit about our markets and our capabilities there.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, LaDonna, for setting this up and giving us a chance to talk to your OAA members. A little bit about me. You gave me a more glowing introduction than I probably deserve, but I did spend a a lot of years managing underwriting and branch offices for Standard Company. And people in Arkansas may remember I was here from 2001 to 2009 managing Union Standard branch office, and then went back to Oklahoma until 2016, and retired a couple of years and kind of got bored and kind of got back into it. So I came to work at at OGA, October of 2019. And I've known Jenny for a long, long time and know lots of people there. And it's been a great organization for me. So they hired me to develop business in Arkansas since I had moved back to Maumelle. And so what I've been doing since then is doing brokerage underwriting for OGA, and spent a lot of time on medical cannabis in Oklahoma in 2020. But my main focus now is trying to develop commercial lines business and create a larger presence in Arkansas for OGA. So what I would tell you about the organization is I've been extremely pleased with the support that the Oklahoma City office has given me. You know, if I have a question, I need something, I got plenty of backup, even though I work out of my home. I would tell you that some of the stuff that we've been able to do lately is, just to give you some examples on commercial lines, or what we've done is I put together a property schedule up in northeast Arkansas that was damaged by a tornado. And so I was able to get a company to begin to write some of that back, which most companies just stayed away from it because it had damage. But we were able to pick up the property as it was repaired and as it was built back. And so that's keeps growing into a more sizable account. Some other things I've done lately I actually did some for some of your folks is a novelty store. I've done some lesser's risk property. Just quoted, I've quoted a couple of gun shops. We have some really good markets for lesser's risk dwelling schedules. We have two real good markets for that. Berkshire Hathaway does it, and we also have a Lloyd's market that's our best market that does that. And we have access to a lot of different markets that will do a lot of different unusual things, and from a casualty standpoint. And so my background, I've been in this business over 40 years, so there's not too many commercial lines exposures that I haven't seen over my career. So not too much scares me, and I don't mind rolling up my sleeves and digging into and trying to figure out what we can do with it. We do have quite a bit of list of markets you can see on our website, but the markets probably we have are divided into, we have some binding markets where we have access to a system. We can quote online, we can then bind online. Some of those markets that we do business with are Scottsdale, which is a nationwide, Markel, Hallmark, Music, General Star, IAT Wilshire, and we also have some of our standard markets that some of your agencies might have reason to access ours. We have some standard markets such as Travelers, Hartford, and we have Union Standard for farm business in Arkansas. So those are some that some of your particularly newer established agencies might want to have access to. From a brokerage standpoint, we've got Berkshire Hathaway is probably our best property market, but we have some others that we can approach from a casualty standpoint. We have Northfield and Daigle and Associates that do some logging for us, plus Northfield, owned by Travelers, it does a lot of other stuff for us. Kinsale does some unusual casualty stuff for us. And then we have some habitational markets that write apartments and that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. One of the things that I spent probably, I'd say 3/4 of 2020 doing is I spent time writing medical cannabis business in Oklahoma. So I've become very, very familiar with that industry. And Arkansas is more limited on the numbers, but it's there, and we have markets that can write that business. So if any of your agencies are wanting to go after a dispensary, for example, we have some great markets for that. Admiral is probably the best market that we have for that, and in Berkshire Hathaway, we'll do some of the property stuff. And we're just about ready to have direct access and have the PIN for another medical cannabis market. So kind of have your people to keep that in mind. My question for you would be, what is it from a wholesale standpoint, market standpoint on commercial lines, do you think that your OAA agents need the most?
Yeah, so we get a lot of questions on logging and transportation and farm that they struggle getting written. So how can you guys help them with those markets?
Well, logging, I've seen a few of the smaller ones, but Northfield and Nagel and Associates out of Mississippi, we have access to those, and that fits their appetite. Farm business, like I said, we have a union standard farm contract that's handled by a lady named Carol Edwards that's located in our Oklahoma City office. She and I have worked together at different companies for over 30 years, so I've known her for a long, long time, and so she has the PIN for that. So and then she has some other farm markets as well. She handles all the farm business for OGA, so that's a name to keep in mind. And you may have met Carol at some point in time. And then I'll let Patrick talk about transportation, because in Arkansas, we don't tend to have much auto available, and I don't know that much about transportation. So Patrick?
Yeah, we're pretty limited in Arkansas for transportation right now. We have a NICO, which you probably have had access to through another NGA or another outlet. But we can look at any account with 10 or more units. So that's our limitation. We tried to pick up more transportation markets, and we continue to do that. But as you know, transportation markets on the E&S side are very territorial, and they're very hard to pick up new ones. And quite frankly, they're getting tougher and tougher every day. It's constant struggle over there. But we can, one area I would mention to you on transportation, we do have access to transportation, some of the border. She does a little bit with Markel on the farm, particularly if they have equine risk. So keep that in mind. Come in, we just talk. If you have a question about it, you just call Carol. She's happy to talk with anybody and tell them exactly what she can do. She really knows her markets. That's all she's done for years is farm and ranch, and she really knows the marketplace.
And I can tell you that she's a livestock person from way, way back, showed livestock, and her dad was a ag teacher, and her daughters and granddaughters both showed livestock, so she's been in the livestock business all her life. So she's very, very familiar from a farm standpoint of the exposures there. Does a really good job of maneuvering that at the company level.
Absolutely.
So what are you guys seeing from a wholesale standpoint with hotels and motels? Are you seeing a decrease in business or an increase coming over to your side?
Well, we're seeing, I would say I haven't been flooded with those, but I've worked on several hotel motels, and I would tell you that market has gotten tougher. There's not as many players that want that business, and the ones that do, I was looking at one yesterday and last week, and the rates that some of our markets are using are hard to sell. But I kind of think it's probably going to gravitate to where it has to sell, because, I mean, the pandemic hurt that industry because, their business has gone down. I mean, there's not much traveling going on. So it just makes it harder to write. And I've just seen the property